So we got Jeffrey Dahmer's, like the boy who got drugged and killed by Jeffrey Dahmer. He was 14 years old. So we're about to check this out. So if you're new, go ahead and leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. And let's go ahead and react to it.
I'm on 25th and State, and this is young man. He is butt naked. He has been beaten up. He is very bruised up. He can't stand. He's study fall out. He is butt naked. He has no clothes on. He is really hurt.
This is 14-year-old Keneric Synthesiphone, and he is the 13th victim of this man, Jeffrey Dahmer. What makes this case different from this notorious killer's 16 other victims are the heartbreaking circumstances around it. You see, Somsak was lucky enough to escape Dahmer's grip only 3 years later. Dahmer went on to capture Keneric, who also managed to escape, but the failures by law enforcement to protect one of their citizens meant Dahmer was allowed to take him back to his house of horrors and early death. Let's dig into one of our most twisted cases, the tragic story of the 14-year-old boy that was drugged and killed by Jeffrey Dahmer.
Conrad, that's how you say his name.
I wish I could have just found some type of brick or some type of stick that night and never called the police and just knocked him out and took the boy. I could have took him, and then he could have recovered. And then his family, they would have to go through what they went through.
By 1991, the Synthesiphone family had been living in Milwaukee for over a decade after fleeing repression in their home of Laos. The father, Southone, had been threatened with losing his rice farm, so he took his family and fled to Thailand in 1979, where they spent a year living in a refugee camp. They would move to America in 1980, where they would join family in an area already flourishing with Laotian immigrants. The family adjusted to the American way of life pretty quickly, with the children becoming fluent in English and those old enough taking jobs to earn their way. But in 1988, this family's American dream was about to become a nightmare, as Jeffrey Dahmer began a campaign of terror against them that would span 3 years, but last a lifetime. When Keneric's brother was only 13, still an innocent child, Dahmer approached him with an offer that would earn him some extra cash. Dahmer wanted to take Somsak home and take photographs of him for money. The job, however, came with a sickening twist attached. He had to pose naked. While he was there, he was abused in the most sickening ways and given narcotics to make him easier to control so Dahmer could have his way with him. Luckily, Somsak escaped and reported it to the police. Dahmer was arrested for his twisted crime and sentenced for second-degree sexual assault and luring a minor for immoral purposes. This is where the Synthesiphone family's story with Jeffrey Dahmer should have ended. Their son had survived a brutal ordeal, and the man responsible was locked away. But the first of many other crazy decisions or failures by the authorities meant this was only just the beginning. Dahmer was released a year into his sentence and given 5 years probation. Many more families were about to go through heartbreak after his release, as the next 5 years he would claim 12 victims on his murderous spree. Before long, one family would have to face the terror of one of the world's sickest men all over again. A terror they had no idea was coming. Police claimed they informed the Synthesiphone family of his early release, but the family says differently. 3 years later, Keneric, who did not know Jeffrey Dahmer, or what a psycho he was, found himself in the same position as his brother.
We're gonna party. Party hardy.
Dahmer asked him to come to his home where he would pay him to take photos, again, posing naked. What this man didn't know was that this killer's last victim, Tony Hughes, was inside the bedroom, and his body was beginning to give off a smell. He never had the chance to discover this sickening secret, as Dahmer gave him narcotics and tortured him before holding him down and performing one of the most despicable acts one person can do to another. He drilled directly into Kenaric's skull and injected hydrochloric acid into the hole. Why would he attempt this homemade lobotomy? Because he wanted his victim in a zombie-like state, making them easier to manipulate. At some point, Dahmer left the house, leaving Kenaric alone, but instead of being incapacitated, he had enough will and strength left in him to escape and try to find help. On the night of May 27, 1991, he was found on the street by several women. One of them, Nicole Childress, was the person who made the call to 911.
He needs some help on 25th and State, the corner of 25th and State.
He's just on the corner at the street?
Yeah, he in the middle of the street. He fell out. We trying to help him, so people trying to help him.
During this time, Dahmer returned home, and he wanted his victim back. But just in time, the police arrived, and it looked like Kenaric was saved. Officers on the scene had the chance to put an end to the sadistic spree of murder once and for all, and go down in law enforcement history. But what they did instead is just unbelievable. Three officers and paramedics arrived on the scene quickly. Supposedly, the witness told the police the young man seemed to be the victim of assault and was bleeding from his private area. No matter how hard he tried, Kenaric could not speak properly as the acid in his brain had already caused damage, leaving the officers to either take the word of these three witnesses or a man who would turn out to be a cold-blooded killer. But get this, even though he had called Kenaric several different names before managing to gain control of him, police still took the word of Jeffrey Dahmer over these three very concerned witnesses. He claimed the young man was 19 years old, staying with him, and was just simply drunk. It's incredible to think that the officials on the scene could simply dismiss what appeared so obvious, but we'll come back to the reason why that might be shortly. The pair were escorted by the police to Dahmer's home, where again these officers had the chance to stop a serial killer, but somehow failed to act in the face of some strange circumstances. Inside his home, he showed the officers photos of Kenaric he had taken the day before, as proof that they knew each other. While they were there, they could not escape the unusual smell in the apartment, a smell they should recognize: death, and lots of it. Several victims were still somewhere in Dahmer's apartment, and the officer who went to check out the smell should have been the one to discover his blood secret. Dahmer himself has said that the officer looked into his bedroom, where the smell seemed to be coming from, but did not investigate further. Is it possible that the officer saw the body of Tony Hughes, but decided not to act? Surely he must have seen the body on the floor, or at least seen something that needed a closer look. Instead, they condemned a 14-year-old to an early grave.
And they left. That's what they said. Right away. And how long did it take from the guy that was immediate?
This time, the acid injected into his brain was enough to kill him. A sad, heartbreaking end to an innocent life that should have been saved more than once. As if to add insult to injury, his body was dismembered, stripping this boy of all dignity. A few months later, Dahmer was eventually caught after his final victim successfully escaped and alerted police.
A gruesome story leads off our newscast.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment, and now they wonder if they've uncovered some kind of death factory.
They found remains of several men inside the apartment, including Kenaric's skull. For his crimes, he would spend the rest of his life in prison. That should at least give the families of his victims some closure. But the Synthesiphone family will never forget their encounters with one of America's most deranged men, who took one of their sons away and left another scarred for life. Why didn't the police act on what those witnesses and their own eyes saw that night? Were questions Kenaric's family were prepared to ask. In fact, they were ready to make the police department answer for their failures in court.
I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm hurt, because some of these kids, two of them I knew.
The family filed a lawsuit claiming the department had shown discrimination against certain areas of the community, in this case anyone who was of ethnic minority or LGBT citizens. They claimed the police didn't listen to the witnesses at the time because of their ethnic background, and this was not an isolated incident. Shockingly, the officers who attended were accused of making homophobic comments and jokes about the pair, which should tell us why they showed little concern and left Kanarek at the apartment with Dahmer. Recorded police radio may just show how these officials felt about the situation.
Intoxicated Asian naked male was
Hey,
returning
laughing,
to
bro?
his sober boyfriend, and we're
These failings would not go unnoticed by others.
The story that's breaking here this afternoon in Milwaukee suggests police incompetence of the most incredible kind. It is contained in the front page of the Milwaukee Journal this afternoon, the headline reading, "Police were in the Dahmer apartment." This was May 27th, nearly 2 months before the first bodies were found there.
They should lose their jobs. They should not be suspended. They should not be, suspended with pay. I don't know what's happening, but they should lose their jobs. This costs people lives.
The Synthesiphone family settled with the city for almost $1 million, and the officers were fired, although they were reinstated in a controversial decision. This family has suffered more heartbreak than most could ever endure, and will never be the same again after their encounters with one of the world's most evil men, Jeffrey Dahmer. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts.
I mean, that's sad that they took him back to the place where Jeffrey was staying, and eventually you already know what happened, and this is sad, but R.I.P. to all the 17 young victims that he killed. Bro, this is, I don't even know how I feel about that. But anyway, if you guys like this reaction, go ahead and leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It's your boy Sky Breezy, and I'll see y'all next time.